whispers crawl beneath the skin, a shadow's grin.
The silent choir. Ben's headphones hummed with static as he stared at the waveform on his monitor. It was 3 in the morning, and his studio apartment reeked of cold coffee and the electrical smell of overworked equipment. The acetate disc spinning on his turntable looked like it might crumble into dust at any moment, its surface the color of old honey under his desk lamp. The collector had called it priceless. St. Hilarion's Celestial Choir, recorded in January 1927, the only known recording of the school's legendary boys' choir before the entire ensemble vanished without a trace. Ben had restored hundreds of vintage recordings, but something about this one made his skin crawl even before he'd heard a single note. He adjusted the needle, held his breath, and pressed record on his digital interface. What poured through his speakers was impossibly beautiful. 12 boy sopranos, their voices pure and crystalline, singing a Latin hymn he didn't recognize. The sound had that distinctive analog warmth, but there was something else too. Something that made the hair on his arms stand up. The voices seemed to resonate not just in his ears, but in his chest, in his bones, as if the sound was bypassing his hearing entirely and speaking directly to something deeper. The first track ended. Ben's spectral analyzer flickered across his second monitor, showing the usual pattern of silence between songs. Just the crackle and pop of the old acetate, the gentle hiss of decades-old recording equipment. Except, his eyes narrowed, there in the supposed silence, a spike, a single frequency, perfectly sustained, impossibly pure. It sat there in the visual representation of sound like a needle, unwavering, constant. That wasn't right, that couldn't be right. Ben isolated the frequency, applied a high-pass filter, boosted the gain. The spike remained, a mathematical impossibility etched into 98-year-old acetate. He leaned closer to his monitor, his coffee forgotten, his exhaustion evaporating. Beneath the frequency, something moved, not sound exactly. Something that existed in the spaces between the crackle of the record, hiding in the noise like a message written in invisible ink. Whispers. He enhanced the audio further, his fingers flying across his keyboard with the unconscious precision of 15 years' experience. The whispers resolved slowly, painfully, like a photograph developing in chemicals. Childlike voices, multiple voices, speaking in perfect unison. Tanibimus, tanibimus, tanibimus. Ben's Latin was rusty, limited to what he'd picked up from church and old horror movies. But he knew this word: we are holding, we hold, we sustain. His mouth went dry. He adjusted the parametric equalizer, pulling the frequencies apart like a surgeon separating conjoined twins. One voice broke free from the chorus, stronger than the rest, clearer, more desperate. He made us hold the note, we are still holding it, help us. The voice belonged to a boy, 12 years old, maybe 13, and it was absolutely, bone-deep terrified. Ben's hand jerked away from his mouse as if it had burned him. He stared at the waveform on his screen, at the impossible spike of frequency that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist. His rational mind scrambled for explanations. Audio artifacts, digital corruption, some quirk of the analog-to-digital conversion process. But he'd been doing this too long to believe his own excuses. He played the section again and again and again. Each time the same words, the same desperate, terrified voice, help us, help us, help us. The sun was coming up when Ben finally pulled off his headphones. His eyes burned, his head throbbed, and somewhere just at the edge of perception he could still hear it, that single, sustained note, no longer confined to the recording, bleeding out into the world like sound made poison. He looked at his phone, 17 missed calls from the collector, a dozen text messages, each more insistent than the last. Ben ignored them all. Instead, he opened his laptop and typed 3 words into the search bar. St. Hilarion's choir. The rabbit hole opened beneath him. 3 days passed like fever dreams. Ben barely left his studio. Food became an afterthought. Sleep came in 15-minute bursts between research binges and audio analysis sessions. His apartment transformed into something between a detective's incident room and a madman's shrine. Printouts covered every surface: waveforms, historical documents, grainy photographs of 12 boys in old-fashioned school uniforms, their faces serious and pale, standing in 3 neat rows. And the note, always the note. It was everywhere now, not just in the recording, in his studio, in his apartment, in his head. A faint, persistent hum that seemed to resonate in his teeth, his bones, the hollow spaces behind his eyes. His sound meters showed nothing. The frequency analyzers registered only normal ambient noise, but Ben could feel it, drilling into his skull like a slowly tightening vice. The research painted a picture that made him wish he'd never accepted this job. St. Hilarion's School for Boys, a small private institution in Connecticut, catering to the children of wealthy families. Nothing remarkable about it until 1926, when Matthias Corvinus became the choir director. Corvinus was 43, born in Budapest, educated in Vienna and Prague. The school records Ben found in digitized archives called him a natural philosopher and gifted musician. The occult journals he discovered on obscure websites called him something else. A harmonic thaumaturgist, sound magician. Corvinus believed that music was more than art, more than mathematics. He believed it was a fundamental force of the universe, as real and powerful as gravity or electromagnetism. He wrote extensively about resonance, about frequency, about the ways that sound could reshape reality if properly applied. His journals, scanned and uploaded by some academic decades ago, read like a fusion of physics textbooks and grimoires. But it was the final entries that made Ben's blood run cold. Corvinus had discovered something, or something had discovered him. He called it the listener. Not a name, Ben realized, a description, a thing that listened, a thing that fed on sound, on prayer, on the resonance of human devotion. The listener came from somewhere else, somewhere outside. Corvinus's descriptions grew increasingly frantic, increasingly unhinged, a being of infinite mouths and infinite hunger. A thing that existed in the frequencies between frequencies, that could slip into reality wherever humans gathered to worship, to pray, to sing their devotion to something greater than themselves. Churches became abattoirs, temples became feeding grounds. Anywhere faith resonated, the listener could enter. Corvinus believed he could stop it, bind it, trap it using the only weapon he had, sound itself. The prison of song. A perfectly sustained note held with absolute conviction, with perfect faith, could create a barrier, a cage made of sound. Corvinus spent months preparing. He needed voices of absolute purity, absolute devotion. He needed children. He needed his choir. The final entry in Corvinus's journal was dated January 15th, 1927. The day of the recording session. The listener is bound, the ritual is complete. The boys understand their sacred duty. They hold the note even now, even as I write. Their voices, captured in acetate, sustained by the eternal return of playback, will hold it forever. They have become the prison. They are the lock and the key. Should the note ever cease, should the record be destroyed, should their vigil end, it will emerge. And it is always, always hungry. The boys have given themselves willingly for the salvation of the world. Their sacrifice will echo through eternity. God forgive me. There were no more entries after that. Corvinus disappeared a week later. The boys of St. Hilarion's choir were never seen again. The school closed in 1928 under a cloud of scandal and suspicion, but no bodies were ever found. No evidence of foul play. Just 12 boys and 1 teacher vanished like smoke. And a single acetate recording of the most beautiful choir music ever produced. Ben sat back from his laptop, his hands shaking. His chest felt tight. He'd been having trouble breathing for the last 2 days. Short, shallow breaths that never quite satisfied, as if something was sitting on his lungs, pressing down, making each inhale a struggle. He spun in his chair and froze. A boy stood in the corner of his studio. Pale, so pale his skin looked almost translucent in the dim light from the monitors. Emaciated, his cheeks hollow, his eyes sunken into his skull. He wore a school uniform from a century ago, complete with a crisp white collar and a dark blazer with a crest Ben couldn't make out. His mouth was open in a perfect O, as if singing a note that would never end. But no sound came out. Ben's heart hammered against his ribs. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The boy stood there, perfectly still, perfectly silent for what felt like hours but must have been only seconds. Then he was gone. Ben blinked. The corner was empty, just shadows and the usual clutter of his studio. He pressed his hands to his face, felt the cold sweat on his skin, the trembling in his fingers. Hallucination, stress, sleep deprivation, pick your rationalization. His phone buzzed on the desk beside him, making him jump. A text message from an unknown number. "We need to meet tonight, bring the record." The address followed, a warehouse in the industrial district. Ben stared at the message. Every instinct screamed at him to delete it, to throw the acetate disc in the trash, to walk away from this entire nightmare. Instead, he picked up the record case and headed for the door. The warehouse squatted in the industrial district like a rust-colored tumor. Ben's Uber driver gave him a suspicious look as he got out, as if questioning what kind of person had business in this neighborhood at 11 at night. Ben didn't blame him. The entire area looked like it had been abandoned sometime in the 80s and forgotten by the city. The warehouse door was unlocked. It swung open at his touch with a horror movie creak that would have been funny if Ben's heart wasn't trying to jackhammer its way out of his chest. Inside, the space had been transformed. Candles burned in geometric patterns across the concrete floor. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, their flames casting dancing shadows that seemed to move with purpose. Speakers formed a perfect circle around a central platform, professional equipment that looked absurdly out of place in the decrepit building. And in the center of it all, sitting on a wooden table like a religious altar, an antique gramophone. Its brass horn pointed toward the ceiling like a flower made of metal, polished until it gleamed. I was beginning to wonder if you would come. Ben spun. A man emerged from the shadows at the far end of the warehouse. Old, maybe 70s, maybe older. He moved with the careful precision of someone whose body had started betraying them, but whose mind remained sharp. His face had the kind of weathered quality that suggested he'd forgotten how to smile decades ago. Marcus Corvinus, the collector's real name, hung in the air between them like an accusation. "You know," Ben said, his voice sounded strange to his own ears. "Raw, he'd been coughing up blood that morning. You've known what's on that record all along." Of course, Marcus approached the gramophone with something like reverence. He trailed his fingers along the brass horn, and Ben could have sworn he heard it hum in response. "My great-grandfather was many things, a madman perhaps, a monster certainly, but also a genius. He understood what no one else did. That sound is not simply vibration, it is structure, it is prison and prayer both." "The boys," Ben said, the words tasted like ashes. "They're still holding the note." For 98 years, Marcus turned to face him, and in the candlelight his eyes looked like holes burned into paper. "Do you know what that means, what it costs to sustain a single note for nearly a century? Their voices, captured in acetate, replaying over and over with each rotation of the disc. An eternal vigil, an eternal agony." "Then let them go," Ben said, his hands clenched into fists. "They're children. You're talking about enslaving children." "I'm talking about saving the world." Marcus's voice cracked like a whip in the cavernous space. He moved to the edge of the speaker circle, gestured at the emptiness it contained. Do you know what the listener is? Do you really understand? It doesn't have form, not as we conceive it. It doesn't think as we think. It is appetite made manifest, hunger given consciousness. It feeds on the resonance of human worship, and in feeding it annihilates. Churches become slaughterhouses, temples become graves. Anywhere people gather in faith, anywhere they raise their voices in devotion, it can enter, it can feed. My great-grandfather trapped it in 1927. He bound it with the most powerful force he knew, the innocent devotion of children singing to God, 12 voices sustained in perfect harmony, creating a cage made of sound, a prison made of faith. Ben felt his chest tighten further. The shortness of breath was getting worse. Each inhale felt like dragging air through wet cloth. What do you want from me? Marcus smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. The prison is failing. 98 years is a long time, even for a miracle. The boys are weakening. Their voices are beginning to decay, to degrade. The acetate is old. The sound is corrupting. And you, Ben, you've been listening, analyzing, enhancing. You've become entangled with the note, woven into its fabric. You've felt it, haven't you? The pressure, the breathlessness, the way it follows you even when the record isn't playing. Ben wanted to deny it, couldn't. The boys need to be relieved, Marcus continued, and thanks to modern technology, we can do what my great-grandfather never could. One voice, properly amplified, properly looped, properly sustained by digital means, can replace 12. You're an audio engineer. You understand sound in ways Matthias never dreamed possible. You can refine the prison, strengthen it, perfect it. Ben's voice emerged as a whisper. What are you asking me to do? Marcus lifted the acetate disc from Ben's nerveless fingers. When had he walked close enough to take it? Ben couldn't remember. I'm asking you to sing, Marcus said simply. The temperature in the warehouse plummeted. Ben could see his breath now, white clouds of vapor hanging in the air. The candle flames guttered and danced as if caught in a wind that didn't exist. They appeared all at once. 12 boys in school uniforms from a century ago. They formed a perfect circle around the gramophone, their pale faces turned inward, their mouths open in identical expressions of strain and exhaustion and eternal, unending effort. Their eyes, sunken and desperate, fixed on Ben with an intensity that made him want to look away and couldn't. Their mouths moved in perfect synchronization, but Ben heard nothing. No, that wasn't true. He heard the note. The eternal, sustaining note that had been humming in his head for 3 days, now revealed as the sound of 12 souls screaming silently across a century. It pressed against his eardrums, his skull, his mind, a physical force that made his teeth ache and his bones vibrate. Marcus placed the disc on the gramophone. The mechanism was already prepared, already powered. Ancient gears clicked and whirred with surprising smoothness. I've prepared everything, Marcus said. His voice seemed to come from very far away. The laptop over there, already configured with the necessary software. The microphones, the speakers, all you have to do is step into the circle and sing. The boys turned to face Ben as one. Their faces pleaded, their eyes begged. The smallest one, the one whose voice had spoken from the recording, mouthed 3 words Ben understood despite the silence. Break the record. If I break it, Ben whispered. His voice was barely audible over the building pressure of the note. What happens? The listener is freed, Marcus said. Within hours, every church, every temple, every mosque, every place of worship in the city becomes a feeding ground. Within days, the country. Within weeks, the world. Millions dead, billions eventually. It will not stop until humanity itself falls silent. And if I don't, then you take their place, you hold the note forever. The gramophone began to play. The sound that emerged was beautiful and terrible in equal measure. The boys' voices, crystalline and pure, rose in a harmony that transcended music, that became something closer to architecture. a structure made of sound, a prison made of song. But underneath the beauty, Ben could hear the strain now, the exhaustion, the century of suffering compressed into a single, perfect note that should have ended 98 years ago but never, never could. And beneath that, something else. Something vast, something patient, something hungry. A shadow began to coalesce in the center of the circle, not darkness. Darkness was simply the absence of light, and light could always be rekindled. This was deeper. This was the absence of everything. A void that swallowed not just light, but perception itself, concept itself, being itself. Ben watched, unable to look away, unable to move, as the shadow resolved into something that hurt to see. A mouth, then another. Then dozens, hundreds, thousands of mouths opening and closing in silence, tasting the air, tasting the sound, tasting the dying resonance of faith that had kept it bound for nearly a century. The listener. It had been waiting so long. The boys' ghosts were screaming now. Ben could see it in their faces, in their desperate, agonized eyes. The silver threads of sound that connected their mouths to the gramophone, to the record, to the prison they had maintained since 1927 were fraying, splitting, breaking. Marcus grabbed Ben's arm. His grip was surprisingly strong for such an old man. Sing, he hissed, now, before it's too late, before the prison fails completely. Sing, or we all die. Ben looked at the speakers arranged in their perfect circle. At the laptop on the table beside the gramophone, its screen glowing, audio software already open, a looper armed and ready, everything prepared for him to step into the role of eternal jailer. At the bank of professional microphones pointed at the platform like accusations. He looked at the boys, at their exhausted, desperate, agonized faces, at their century of suffering, at the eternal scream frozen in their translucent throats. He looked at the listener, at the thing that would devour the world if freed, at the infinite mouths opening and closing, hungry for the sound of human devotion, the resonance of human faith. Then Ben did something that neither Marcus Corvinus nor Matthias Corvinus had ever anticipated. Something that no one in their carefully laid plans had considered possible. He didn't break the record. He ran to the laptop. His fingers flew across the keyboard, opening new windows, routing audio, adjusting levels with the unconscious precision of 15 years of professional experience. He grabbed a microphone from its stand, positioned himself in front of the largest speaker. "What are you doing?" Marcus's voice rose in panic. "That's not the right position. You need to be in the center. You need to replace their note exactly." Ben ignored him. He pulled up plugins, harmonizer, pitch shifter, vocoder. He routed his voice through the digital looper, set the delay to infinite, the feedback to maximum. His hands moved across the interface like a pianist playing a familiar concerto, each keystroke precise, purposeful. Then he sang. Not the same note as the boys, a different one, a harmony. His voice cracked on the first attempt. His throat was raw from 3 days of breathing that damned frequency, but he held it, pushed through. The software caught the note, looped it, sustained it. He sang again, a third above the original, another harmony, and another, a fifth, an octave. His voice layered upon itself, digital copies stacking and reinforcing, weaving together into something that had never existed before. The boy's single note had been a prison wall. Ben's chord was a fortress. The effect was immediate and violent. The listener recoiled, the shadow compressed as if struck by a physical force. The infinite mouths opened wider, and though they made no sound, Ben could feel them screaming. The chord he'd created, complex, mathematically perfect, sustained by technology that didn't exist in 1927, drove it back, pushed it down, forced it into the spaces between spaces where it had been imprisoned. The boys' ghosts turned to him, their faces transformed. The exhaustion, the agony, the century of suffering drained away like water, replaced by something Ben hadn't expected to see. Relief, gratitude, poison. The silver threads connecting them to the gramophone dissolved. One by one they faded, their mouths finally closing, their vigil ended. The largest boy went first, his form becoming translucent, then transparent, then gone, then another, and another. The smallest boy was the last to fade. He looked at Ben with eyes that were suddenly just a child's eyes, no longer weighted with a century of torment. His lips moved, and though no sound emerged, Ben understood. Thank you. Then he was gone. The listener was gone too, driven back into its prison by the new, stronger, more sophisticated harmony. The shadow imploded, compressed into a point of absolute darkness, then vanished. Ben collapsed to his knees. His throat was on fire, his lungs burned. Blood trickled from his nose, dripped onto the concrete floor, but the pressure was gone. The constant hum in his head had changed, transformed into something bearable. His cord, his voice, his prison. Marcus stared at the laptop screen, at the waveform display showing Ben's looped voice sustaining the chord in perfect digital eternity. His face was pale, his hands shaking. You actually did it, he whispered. You improved the prison, made it stronger, more stable. My great-grandfather would have wept to see this. Ben couldn't speak, his throat was too raw. He could only kneel there on the cold concrete, gasping as the laptop continued to play his voice back to him. Over and over and over. A digital loop that would never degrade, never corrupt, never end. Marcus helped him stand, helped him gather his equipment. The old man moved like someone in shock, his careful composure shattered. It will hold now, he said. It will hold forever. You've saved them, saved us all. Ben nodded. He picked up the laptop, cradled it against his chest like a child. The screen showed his voice, visualized in waveforms and spectral displays, sustaining the chord that kept the listener bound. A prison required a guard, and Ben had just volunteered for eternal duty. 6 weeks later, Ben sat in his studio apartment drinking tea with honey. His throat had mostly healed. The raw, burning sensation had faded to a dull ache. His voice had changed, though. Lower now, rougher. He couldn't hit the high notes anymore. Small price to pay. The dual monitors glowed in the darkness. He kept the apartment dark these days. The light hurt his eyes, hurt something deeper than his eyes. The laptop from the warehouse sat on his desk, connected to a sophisticated array of backup drives, power supplies, fail-safes. The audio interface blinked its steady rhythm, monitoring the sustained chord 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Forever. A prison required a guard, the guard required relief. Ben had coded new software in the week since the warehouse. Sophisticated algorithms that monitored the chord's integrity, analyzed decay patterns, predicted failures before they occurred. Machine learning trained on thousands of hours of human vocal samples, learning the architecture of the prison, understanding how to maintain it. And searching, always searching, for backup sources, for relief. Because even digital loops degraded eventually. Even perfect mathematical harmonies showed strain over time. The chord was strong but not invincible. It would need reinforcement, support, fresh voices to layer into the eternal song. An alert flashed on the screen, red text against black. Vocal strain detected. Current chord integrity 87%. Recruiting backup source required. Ben leaned forward. A new window opened automatically, showing real-time audio analysis of his apartment. The sophisticated monitoring system he'd installed tracked every sound, every frequency, every potential source of harmonic material. From the bedroom, soft and rhythmic breathing. Sarah, his girlfriend, asleep after a long shift at the hospital. Her breathing pattern appeared on the screen as a waveform, analyzed and quantified, deep, regular, with excellent tonal quality. The software highlighted characteristics Ben had taught it to recognize: vocal range, pitch stability, harmonic potential, suitability for integration into the eternal chord. A dialog box appeared, black text on red this time. Candidate selected, optimal integration 94%, begin recruitment protocol. Ben's hand hovered over the mouse. In the background, so faint it existed more as pressure than sound, he could hear it, his chord, his voice looped and layered and sustained, holding back the dark, but weakening, always weakening. Entropy was inevitable, even in digital systems, even in prisons made of sound. A prison required a guard. The guard required relief. He thought of the boys' faces in that final moment, the relief, the gratitude, the peace. A century of suffering ended. He thought of the listener, the infinite mouths, the hunger that would never be satisfied, the feeding grounds it would make of every church, every temple, every place where humans gathered in faith. He thought of Sarah sleeping in the next room, peaceful, unaware, her breathing steady and deep and perfect for integration. His finger clicked the mouse. The software began to process, its algorithm spinning up, preparing. In the bedroom, a speaker hidden in the ceiling activated, subsonic at first, completely imperceptible to conscious hearing, tuned to the exact frequency of Sarah's breathing pattern, matching it, mimicking it, training her lungs, her vocal cords, her entire respiratory system without her knowledge. Preparing her. The dialog box updated, green text now, progress bar filling slowly. Recruitment protocol initiated. Estimated time to full integration, 72 hours. Ben closed his eyes. When he opened them, he looked different, older, tired in a way that sleep could never fix, tired in a way that would last forever. On the monitor, the waveform of his chord pulsed, like a heartbeat, like a prison wall, like 12 boys holding a note for a century, and one audio engineer holding a chord for eternity. Soon it would be too. The software continued its work, patient, relentless. In the bedroom, Sarah stirred in her sleep. Her breathing changed subtly, unconsciously matching the subsonic frequency bleeding from the hidden speaker. Her lips parted slightly. And she began, almost imperceptibly, to hum. A prison required a guard. The guard required relief. And the song would never, never end.
Shadows in the